I'm going to try to go low, high, because I've been accused actually of only reporting terrible news stories. So we're just going to try to keep it, a nice rolling wave of positives and negatives. Um, there was It's been at least 6 weeks since I've reported on someone doing dentistry illegally in a basement. But you know what? I couldn't hold out any longer because this one got pretty saucy. So there was a man in Michigan who was performing dentistry in his basement. And there was another gentleman who decided to pursue dental services in said man's basement because it would be cheaper for him to get the root canal and veneers that he was seeking. So he did. But then after the services were provided, he was in a lot of pain and was trying to get help. And in the end, when he came to complain, he was asked to come to the dental office in the basement around midnight on one particular evening, which I feel like would have been the first tipping point. But who am I to say? I have the hindsight to say that probably was a terrible idea, where the dentist proceeded to shoot said man complaining of dental work and now is being charged and likely sentenced for murder. So there's so much to unpack in that story. We've got the illegal dental office in the basement, then the murder, then the dissatisfaction of dental procedures being performed. I mean, you could take the story in a myriad of directions, but I thought it really kind of brought all the negative stories that I like to tell on this newscast all into one particular story where we get both illegal dentistry, murder, and complaint of dental services all wrapped up in one. Lovely story coming out of Michigan. So we got to thank the good folks there for providing us that. One of what I thought was one of the biggest news stories that came out of this week in the world of dentistry was that Invisalign, or Align Technology, has filed a lawsuit against an Oregon orthodontist for claiming that he was using Invisalign when he was actually using Ormco Spark clear aligners. That is what the lawsuit claims. Now, interestingly, this dentist out of Lake Oswego, Oregon, is a KOL for Ormco Spark.
That's where our guest last week was from. Sorry.
What? Really?
Yeah.
Well, there you go. So anyway, this gentleman is advertising false marketing, saying that he's using Invisalign services, but when in fact they are reporting that he is using Ormco. What I thought was pretty staggering was the amount. The company has now sued him for $28 million, I believe, from Align Technology. So what's the takeaway from this particular story? Well, the first would be that entities are getting quite serious about false advertising of use of their services, and that they may be starting to really hone in on that. And we've seen that a little bit in the clear aligner world, where we use the term Invisalign kind of like we use the term Kleenex or other common terms when you actually may just be talking about a tissue or a piece of toilet paper. And now Invisalign has become the Kleenex of the clear aligner manufacturing space, but that is not going to be tolerated for very long. So we'll see how this one sort of comes to fruition. It will be very soon that California dental practices may be required to have violence prevention plans. A law that was passed back in September of last year will go into effect in July 1. There's still some clarity that has to be wrapped around which businesses will be required to have this, but as it stands today, those practices that have more than 10 employees will have to have a violence plan in place. This plan will also need to be updated annually, and employees will participate in the development of that plan. That would be if you had a disgruntled employee association, like boyfriend, husband, etc. Sorry, I always lump the boys into that particular category. Or if you had someone coming off the street who walked into the practice who created a violent scenario. So they're asking practices that with more than 10 employees that they'll need to put that in place. So if that does apply to you out of California, you'll need to take note. I thought this was super interesting coming out of Marquette. We're seeing the first dental grads coming out with privileged diplomas. What is a privileged diploma? Well, this is a diploma that has been granted by the university that no longer requires any type of clinical or board exam to determine competency in the art and science of dentistry. So, within 3 days of graduation from Marquette, these dental students will have a full licensure to be able to practice in the state of Michigan. This was obviously put into place to help address some of the access to care issues that they were having in the state, but it certainly could be something that other states may be watching to see how this performs well in the private sector. But this is our first instance of individuals that are not even required for a PGY1, which has been pushed for quite some time, a postgraduate year study in an AEGD or GPR to determine competency. They have bypassed both the PGY1 and the licensure exam and straight to licensure. So we'll see how that develops over time. I had to zone in on this particular story because it came out of my home state of North Carolina. There was a dental patient who couldn't get reimbursed for a dental implant that she had to have placed. She reported that it was because a certain medication made her more susceptible to tooth loss, and therefore she required an implant for placement. She had filed it with MetLife. MetLife had denied reimbursement for the procedure. She contacted our local news organization. You know how they do the news consumer advocacy piece of a lot of the news and news groups now have these particular arms that are associated with their media outlets. Well, she contacted our local media outlet. They got on the case, and within 2 days, she got paid. So now, immediately, I'm reading the story going, can I just start filing constant complaints of non payment services from the dental industry? And I'm just going to go straight to my local news outlet, WRAL, and say, hey, Consumer Report, I need you to go after XYZ insurance company to help get this person paid. They were paid in 2 days. Do you know how long sometimes I fight? 60, 90 days to help either myself or even just to help the patient get paid or reimbursed for the services so they're not financially liable. So to say that I'm amazed, slightly chapped, like a whole host of emotions that are going on right now. Yeah, there's a lot going on with that particular story, but certainly food for thought. And with that, that's the news.